Oklahoma Family Network, I learned about Oklahoma Family Network through Erin, and she is just a powerhouse of, they literally just want to just flood you with amazing resources, and everything is very practical and very well done. And I just love that there are people who committed like that and then find the funding through grant funding to allow those things to happen. So just a little introduction. I see a couple of faces that I know. That's exciting. Hi, Karina. So I am a school counselor at Jenks East Elementary. This is my ninth year as a school counselor, but I'm also a parent educator. So I've been teaching parenting classes for Family and Children Services for 18 years. I used to do parents as teachers, where I'd go into homes and do home visits with infants up to 3 years old. And then I've been trained in active parenting, practical parent education, and then pull in a lot of love and logic things. On the side, when you do work in education, you have to have a side hustle. So I'm also an LPC candidate. So I'm a therapist on the side, and I'm focusing primarily on anger management and parenting groups because we just need help. I mean, and that's what I love to be able to do, is just to take experience and good information and research-based information and share that out with families. So I also teach the Helping Children Cope with Divorce workshops for Family and Children Services, because I know just being able to help families through change makes a big difference. But probably my heart is as an educator. So I love school counseling. I love getting to work with kids and help them learn more about their brains. And if they can understand their brain, it helps them regulate their emotions and their behavior. Just, I count it as a privilege to be able to be involved in their lives. So I have this tendency, I'm gonna be conscious of the pace of my voice, because I tend to want to cram everything possible into a situation, into whatever topic we're talking about. So I'll cram as much in there in an hour as we can. And like Erin said, it will be recorded, but there'll be a follow-up email that has a lot of links to different resources and handouts and things that I'm referencing that can save you, time searching around on the internet. I wish everyone knew about the five love languages. I was first introduced to it in the context of couple relationships. So the five love languages was a really popular book back in, I don't know if I read that in the 80s or the 90s. I think I read that in the 90s. Um, and I'm a little older. And then, based on all the principles and concepts in that, they came up with a book called The Five Love Languages of Children. Hey, if this stuff applies to couple relationships and helping people feel loved when someone is showing them love in their preferred love language, wonder how this would impact parenting. And to me personally, I wish every single person would leave the hospital with a copy of The Five Love Languages of Children. It's just such good, it seems like it's such common sense, but it's just foundational. Our family's been through a lot. So my family has been through divorce. My family has been through remarriage. So my three sons from my first marriage, and I'm remarried. We have a daughter together, and she's now 13. Our family has been through a lot, co-parenting, addiction, mental illness, so many different dynamics that have played a part. To me, the thing that has helped all of us, and especially my sons, stay connected and stay healthy is the principles of the five love languages. And so I'll talk to you a lot about how I implemented that in my own parenting. So highly recommend the books. It's an easy read. It's not a super scientific, deep, heavy read. It's just, it almost seems like simple common sense. They have the five love languages of teenagers. I now have a teenage daughter, my first teenage daughter to have. And they are a different species sometimes, it seems. The things that used to work when they were kids, now it's like we're struggling for connection. So that can help you navigate those relationships. They also have the five love languages of apology. I have not read that one yet, but it's very interesting. I just love new information. So that's on my list of things that I want to read. Um, Now, here's the reality for us, and this comes straight from the Five Love Languages of Children book, Dr. Gary Chapman. Nearly all parents deeply love their children, yet not all children feel that unconditional love and care. Why this contradiction? Often parents assume that their kids just know I love them, or that, hey, I say I love you, that's going to be enough. And it isn't enough. How many of you experienced that as a child, where now that you're an adult, I can go back and give my parents credit for a lot of the things they did, but also sometimes there were certain areas in my relationship where I felt such a big disconnect. And I didn't feel like they loved me, even though I know in my head that they love me. That's what this is all about. It's not just enough to be there for our kids, to do stuff for our kids, to say I love you every day. There's so much more that we can do that makes this effective, that makes our children actually feel like they're loved. Out of this head knowledge into this heart knowledge. And out of that heart knowledge, that's where all of this connection can come from. It helps with discipline, it helps with managing anger, it helps in so many different ways. Right. Here's why they're important. All parents, almost all parents, I should say, but you're here in this class. So I would say all my parents who are here in this class, we love our kids. But a lot of us, without realizing it, we only speak one or two love languages. So if our child doesn't so happen to have the same love language that we have, they might not feel loved. You might find that it's easier for you to connect with certain of your children. A lot of times that's because you have similar love languages. You just get each other and you didn't realize maybe that was why. If you aren't speaking your child's love language, they won't necessarily feel loved, even though you love them, which is so frustrating when they're like, can't they see all this stuff I'm doing? Can't they see all this and this and this? They see it, but if it's not in their love language, it doesn't hit them at that deep level. So that's what I love about this is if you understand love languages, it helps you not just love your children, but love them effectively. I mean, I teach parenting classes. I do classes on discipline. There's all sorts of discipline. There's more effective discipline. So I don't want us to just go out there just blindly throwing our love out there in the dark. I want us to learn how to focus and hone that and be more effective and even more efficient. That's what I found when I experienced single motherhood for almost 5 years, that I didn't have as much time with my children. I didn't have as much time simply because I was working and, all the things that are involved. And so I was able to use my time more efficiently. In the time that I had them, I could make the most of that time and have the most connective, loving impact on them. So here are, if you haven't heard of the love languages before, here are the 5 love languages. Basically, a love language is a way, if someone shows you love in this way, you feel loved. So the 5 love languages for grown-ups and for children are physical touch, words of affirmation, quality time, gifts, and acts of service. So this might be totally new to you and you're like, what in the world is she talking about? So let's go into each one of these and kind of give some examples. So physical touch is exactly what it says it is. Okay, excuse me. Take a quick sip. Parents in all cultures recognize how important it is for that affection, for that touch. Some cultures more than others. So I'm remarried. My husband is South American, he's Colombian. And it's so interesting to me to even see the difference in what's just typical everyday touch for someone in South America compared to someone in the United States. I remember the first time I ever met his family, they picked us up in a car from the airport. There were 3 of when I first met them, there were just me and Diego. We were engaged at the time. So they met us, they picked us up in a car designed to fit 5 people, and 5 people were already in the car. So I just met his family. I had to cram in there. I'm like, there's no personal space. They're all talking to me. They're talking in Spanish. I don't know what they're saying. They're touching my hair and making these comments, and it's just real friendly and touchy-feely. I go sit on the couch in their house, and a couch in the United States, we might put 2 or 3 people on that couch. Well, there were 5 of us on there. There was no personal, that was normal. That was totally normal. So different cultures have different levels of physical touch. Hugs and kisses are very common ways to show this love language, but there's a lot of other ways too. So snuggles, having them do a story time in your lap, holding hands, roughhouse play. I always found it so interesting that I felt sometimes more connected to my dad than my mom at times. Well, he had plenty of things he was great at as a dad, plenty of things that he could have worked on as a dad. But that roughhouse play when we'd wrestle and he, balance us on his hands and stuff, that was physical touch, which happened to be one of my love languages. Back scratches, piggyback rides, all of these are affectionate ways of showing physical touch. If you have a child who craves this, they might love hugs. They might always want to be right next to you. I think that's another reason why I love being an elementary school counselor. Little kids tend to love hugs, and that's part of my job description. I love physical touch. That's one of my love languages. So it's like my job builds me up all day long. Now, some studies find, when it comes to physical touch, a lot of parents, when we get caught up in the busyness of parenting and all of the things, the have tos that we have to do, we got to feed them, we got to clothe them, we've got stuff to do. Some studies find that parents only touch their kids when it's necessary, when I'm picking you up to put you in your bed, when I'm holding you to feed you your bottle, when I'm putting you to bed at night, when I'm helping you take a bath, when I'm buckling you in the car seat. I just kind of limit that physical touch to when it's necessary. Physical touch is very healthy for boys and girls. And this is the tricky part. It needs to continue after puberty. Sometimes it's hard for us as parents when our children's bodies start to change. That doesn't mean that their need for love starts to change too. So we might feel awkward now that my little kid's not a little kid anymore, and oh, their voice is deep and their body's changing, and now it feels awkward when I hug them. If they have a love language of physical touch, and now all of a sudden we're kind of pulling back from that, it feels like we're pulling back from them. So this is where if you do identify that your child's love language is physical touch, be very purposeful about continuing that after they go through puberty. And it might change. They might not want hugs and they might not want to sit on your lap, but really scratching their back when you go by. I know my one of my sons is a big physical touch guy, and he used to have long, beautiful hair. So he would come to me and he'd be like, Mom, will you brush my hair? So he'd sit in front of me and I would brush his hair. Yes, when he talked, when I was brushing his hair. Now, did I feel like brushing his hair at 10:15 at night on a Friday when I was exhausted from a work week? No, I didn't. But that had meaning to him. So if I'd be like, no, I'm good. No, I'm too tired. If I was continually rejecting his reaching out for that, well, guys, he was going to find physical touch somewhere, somehow. So that for me, we found different ways to express that physical touch that all of us were comfortable with, including the kids. Some kids do go through that affection resistant stage, maybe when they go to school and you're not allowed to hug them in front of their friends or anything like that. Still, you can work it in high fives, touching them on their shoulder when they walk by, playing sports with them, roughhouse play, bonking into them when you go by, a quick ruffle on the head, scratching their back when they wake up. Just work in that physical touch if this is really important to your child, even if they go through that stage where they're not so interested in it. So that's physical touch in a nutshell. I always got to keep track of time to make sure I get it all in. All right, words of affirmation. Boy, this is a powerful one. So my top two used to be physical touch and words of affirmation. Now my top two are words of affirmation and acts of service. Your love languages can change over time. Words of affirmation are when I use words to communicate love in a powerful way. These are words of affection. I love you. Oh, you look so great today. What words of praise, words of encouragement. Man, you've been working really hard on that. I'm really impressed with how you didn't give up. We had a Veterans Day concert that the fourth graders at our school put on today. And I saw three kids in the crowd of the whole fourth graders, man, they just stood out. They were singing, their eyes were bright. They were, like all the things that look like a great performance. And they stood out to me in the crowd. I went and found each of them before the school day got over and pulled them aside and said, Hey, you know what? I love that concert. And there were three people that stood out to me in that concert that were just really into it, doing such a great job. And you were one of them. Like I could not stop watching. You just did such a great job. And just their faces just lit up. But I went out of my way to find them, to tell them that. A compliment or a kind thought that's just stays stuck in my head, oh, that's wasted. It needs to come out. Let's spread those nice things that we're saying. Giving positive guidance. All of this speaks to the love languages. Things like, I love you, great catch, you can do it, don't give up, you're terrific. Sometimes words of affirmation can be written words as well. So my sons went through that affection aversive stage there for a little while, but they thought it was funny if I sent funny notes in their lunchbox, or I'd be at the dollar store or see clearance cards in the clearance section. And I would pick up a card and it would be some sort of silly little thing like with a big giant googly eye and put them a note in their lunchbox. And they love that. And I was worried that their friends would think it was weird. And all their friends would be like, oh, Mom, that was a good one. They all got a good laugh about that because they liked cards that had a joke in it or something like that. Another really powerful thing is how we work into our daily routine a habit of giving positive affirmations. The story of one thing I like about you is I was teaching step family parenting classes at Family and Children's Services. And there was a couple in there, it was a blended family, classes for blended families. And so in this class, there was a dad who had a biological son and his wife, she had two biological sons, so his son was her stepson. And her sons were pretty well adjusted. She was really close connected with them. For her husband, his son had really been through a lot. It was an incredibly contentious divorce that he'd gone through. They were in and out of court. He'd already dropped over $50,000 on this, all sorts of DHS reports. I mean, there was just a lot going on in this very volatile divorce that he had gone through. And it had a lot of an emotional impact on the son. The son had been in therapy since he was 3 years old. And I think when he remarried, he was around 6. So she had this habit, the mom, his stepmom, she'd had a habit with her own sons that she drove them to school every day. And when she would start the car, before she drove off, she'd start the car, and that was the cue to one thing I like about you is, and to each of her children, she would just say something. Maybe it was, one thing I like about you is how you go out of your way to include people. One thing I like about you is your humor. One thing I like about you is you give the best hugs. One thing I like about you is, man, you do not give up when something's difficult. You really stick with it. So she used that time to give specific individual compliments to her children, affirmations. Well, she remarries and she starts doing the same thing with her stepson. He's in the car, starts the car, and he is now included in this daily ritual. It wasn't just random, this was a part of their day. And the dad said that did more for his son in 3 months than 3 years of therapy had done. Just that consistent, steady affirmation. So sometimes we have to make it a habit. I've even heard things of, if this isn't your thing that you normally do, keep a paperclip in your pocket for every person in your family. And the goal is by the end of the day, I'll have given away that paperclip, which represents a specific individual words of affirmation. Somehow make it a routine. Bedtime, I love you, or special songs that you do. I remember when the boys were little, I had a different little bedtime routine for each of them, and they each had a favorite song that they would sing. I had one son, he had a little stuffed animal. It was like a little bear that we had gotten, a beanie baby bear that we'd gotten in Silver Dollar City. He loved that little bear. So that little bear every night would sing him the song. I hear the secrets that you keep, do, 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 when you're tucking in your sleep. And we'd had this whole little dance that it would do on his chest. That was our quality time, as well as just those words of me singing, me making him laugh, that they look forward to that. And I did that even when they were in middle school. So I wouldn't do it when they had friends spend the night, though they thought that was weird. So, words of affirmation, incredibly powerful. And, it's important to not just praise results, encourage effort. Everything isn't about the end game. Everything isn't about the accomplishment. Everything isn't about the award. Have effort praise. Hey, I like how you keep working on your math even though it was hard. Hey, I like how you didn't give up there. Hey, I like how you really tried to make your bed. That was a really great effort. I like how you held your tongue when I knew you really wanted to say something kind of mean. Praise effort, not just end results. Because sometimes if we're only saving our praise for when they've accomplished something without realizing it, we're sending a conditional message. I love you when you do all the right things versus I love you all the time. When your child's upset, share reasons you're proud of them. Talk about them to other people in a positive way. That's really powerful when they overhear you doing that. And balance out the affirmations and the corrections. If you have a child whose love language is words of affirmation, I'm not saying that you can never correct them. Absolutely. Part of parenting is correcting and shaping behavior. What you shouldn't do, though, is have it all be corrections. So balance that out. Avoid shaming statements when correcting. So I can't believe you did that. Why would you do that? That was foolish. Really be careful about how you're correcting. Be more specific. Maybe use I messages instead of things like you're a slob, saying things like I have a problem with you leaving your clothes all over the floor in your room. I feel frustrated because the room is constantly dirty and I don't get to do the laundry. I would like you to put your clothes in the hamper. Will you do that? That's a gentler, more respectful way to correct. But if you do have a child that needs a lot of correction and this is their love language, you kind of have to go out of your way to be affirming. We went through a stage, one of my sons, words of affirmation is huge to him. He was always much more sensitive to correction. So I had to be thoughtful about balancing that out. Well, when his little sister was born, he was in fourth grade. Now I'm consumed with the little one. All right. I've got a baby. I've got to feed her. I've got to do all the things. She turns one, she turns two. By the time he was in sixth grade, a couple of years go by, and my sweet, affectionate, pretty mostly compliant kiddo just kind of turns into a back talking little not so fun kid. It's just kind of like, come on. Like, and I remember one night putting him to bed, I'm like, what's going on? What happened to you? I mean, all you do is back talk. And I was very frustrated with him. This is the frustration of a mother with an early childhood kid and a sixth grader with an attitude. And his response was, well, all you ever do is boss me around. You don't even spend time with me. And I'm like, okay. I didn't believe him. And I said, well, all right, I'm going to listen to how I talk to you over the next few days and we'll see. So I listened to how I talked to him over the next few days, and he was 100% right. For every 25 things I would say to him, 20 would be a command. We gotta go. Put your backpack up. Come on, you're late. Did you do your homework? Everything was a command. And I was in that abrupt, I didn't have much time. And on top of that, my typical bedtime routine with him, where I'd laugh and giggle and ask him about his day and stuff like that, I just had cut that out because I was trying to get a 2-year-old to bed. And you can put yourself to bed. I love you. Good night. That kind of a thing. So I shifted. Now, did he still need correction? Absolutely. But there was no balance. So as soon as I started to balance that out, he was back to himself again. He was back to that same sweet kiddo. Took about 9 weeks to kind of get back on that trajectory, but that was simply with me being conscious of my words. And my recommendation is if you have a child with words of affirmation as their love language, give at least one specific positive I message a day. An iMessage is not just I love you. An iMessage is I feel when you do this because. So I feel amazed when you take that time to be patient with your little sister because it makes me excited about your relationship with her. That's a very specific iMessage. It's like a compliment on vitamins. So that would be some ideas for words of affirmation. Now, another love language is quality time. Doesn't this get difficult when you have children? If you have more than one child, it gets incredibly difficult. It's hard to carve out quality time just for me. But quality time, this is not, just, oh, I'm spending time with you, sitting next to you while we're on our phones. This is, I'm carving out time for you. Quality time conveys the message that you're important. I like being with you. Maybe this is scheduling dates with your kids or with your significant other on a camp out, just taking one child running for errands. I had 4 kids, under the household at one point in time. Just spending time with one child while doing an errand. I mean, we had all sorts of great talk time. I do that with my daughter. My daughter, of course, as a 13-year-old, she'd often love to just sit and hang out at home. But I'll be like, all right, hey, we're heading to Costco. Why don't you come with me? And she doesn't always want to at first. That turns out to be our best times together, going through Costco, doing a quick run to Target, grabbing some Brahms. And we have now what would have just been time by me getting my errands done more quickly and efficiently. It turns into incredible quality time talking and staying together simply by allowing ourselves, creating the opportunity for conversation. Friday night movie nights. I have a friend where she's got a family tradition where every Friday night it's family movie night, and she has 3 children, and they rotate who gets to pick the movie for family movie night. And it even rotates with the parents too. And so that's a tradition that they have that's creating that time together, doing chores together. Schedule it if you can't be spontaneous. My uncle has 6 kiddos, 5 boys, and 1 girl. Now, his daughter, big time quality time. So he, as the father of 6 children and 1 daughter, he said, okay, every Saturday morning, that was their thing. They would run get breakfast. And that's what she needed, that undivided daddy time. He scheduled it. So sometimes carving out these minutes, if your schedule really is intense, is important. And even things like sitting down and having a meal together, all of that can be quality time. Another love language is gifts, but this one's tricky. This does not mean I'm showering my child with a ton of material possessions. Because I have yet to meet the child that says, "Oh no, mother, please return that really cool toy. It's not good for my character." Wouldn't that be nice if they did that? Nope. Gifts are, if a child's love language is gifts, it's these tokens of affection, this proof that you are thinking about them kind of a thing. The giving and receiving of gifts can be really powerful expressions of love, but it needs to be specific. Just random stuff, that doesn't feel like a gift. Like, here's an example. For my middle son, he is a lover of school supplies for sure. He was very particular about certain mechanical pencils that he liked. Even when he was in elementary school, it had to be like, I forget, it was the .7 lead, and he liked these specific mechanical pencils. So every now and then when I went to the grocery store, I'd get him 2 pack of these mechanical pencils. They were like $6 for two, or I'd get him another refill of lead. Okay, simple, teeny little thing. I always would put it on his pillow on his bed, anything that I would find. Or I might get, a little thing of Starburst because he liked those Starbursts. Or I'm just some little tiny little something. I would do that and I would have that there. And he'd be like, "Oh, mom was thinking about me when she was at the grocery store." It didn't mean I had to go put a brand new pair of Air Jordans on his pillow. It didn't mean that. The size of the gift is not critical here. It can be something as simple as a card. The most important thing is the love that it represents, but pay attention to what they like. Because if you just get random stuff for them that doesn't mean anything to them, then that's actually going to be counterproductive. So, I mean, I know I had a family member who used to always get me like these really, it kind of was like a Eureka Springs style, really cute stuff if you like that stuff, but lots of floral things. And that's not my decorating style. That's not the way I decorate my office or my home, but it looks really beautiful when someone else does that. Lots of quilts and, lots of, knickknacks and stuff like that. Well, she loved that. So she would buy me stuff like that. There's not a single thing in my home that looks like that, but that's what she would get me. And it would be like, "What? Are you paying attention?" So even though I appreciated the gift, if gifts is someone's love language, pay attention. I use my phone. I actually have notes on my phone. I have Austin gift ideas, Colby gift ideas, Dylan gift ideas, Sophia gift ideas. And I actually take notes and copy and paste links and I put it in my phone because if I see something that, oh, this would be a really great gift for them, next time there's an occasion, I'm going to do that because I want it to have meaning for them. It's not a bribe. It should not be substituted for other love languages. You might know that your child has gifts as a love language if they become little hoarders or they love their little collections. My boys love their Matchbox car collections and they had all their little things that they collected. If they had garage sales are traumatic for them because it's not just stuff, this stuff has meaning to them. That could be a sign that their love language is gifts. Sometimes carrying little snacks that you can have as a treat when you're out together, making cards together for each other, hiding gifts inside your kid's bag, or a little extra something like probably about once a month, I'll put in an unexpected little thing like my daughter likes the green Jolly Ranchers. I'll put a little baggie of green Jolly Ranchers in her lunchbox, and it's just, oh, that's a surprise. I have a drawer of things that I kind of gather when I see things on sale, and I just have them for random occasions. If your child has like secret treasures or things like that, they collect rocks or feathers or whatever, seeing those things when you pick them up. I have a family member that she collects heart rocks wherever she goes. And so every time I have one, I keep it. And then the next time I see her, I give her my little collection that I picked up while she's been gone. I also did, it's kind of harder too as your kids get older and maybe they move far away. So my middle son, oh my goodness, the one who loved his pencils, he is definitely a gifts kid, loves his gifts. Well, he lives in Boston now. He was coming home for Christmas, last Christmas, and guess what? He wasn't going to be able to carry back gifts in his, he was trying to get by with just a carry-on coming home for Christmas. So we had came up with the idea of, all right, he had his little list that he made me. I had my little list that I had made over the year. And so I made it so that from the beginning of November, one gift arrived every week. And I mean, They weren't all big things. Some of them were little token things, little simple things like this little beard oil that he liked and stuff like that. But something was coming through the mail, through Amazon or that I'd ordered online. He'd see the package and he would wait. We would call each other and we would FaceTime and he would open it. He, like, you would have thought he was 4 years old. He was so excited about this, but it was like, hey, you're far, far away. I can't send you stuff, but I can order stuff for free on Amazon or wherever it was. And it's also stuff that you like. And then we had the joy of opening it together. And, when he had a few little things at Christmas, it was stuff that he could bring back in his bag. But he loved that. And it was just simple things. Sometimes it was a thing of Starbucks coffee or whatever, but we took that time to open it together virtually. So little things like that could be ideas for gifts. All right, how am I doing on time? Doing pretty good. The final love language is acts of service. So we've had physical touch, we've had words of affirmation, quality time, gifts, and now acts of service. Here's the reality. Parenthood is one giant act of service. We are doing all the time. Even the stuff we don't like doing, like, you know what I hate? Cooking. I hate it. You always have to cook. Uh, People need food, and it is not delightful for me to cook after school. I think it came from two of my sons had severe food allergies, so I felt like a short order cook. I'd make this for me and this for you and this for you, and just took all the joy out of it. Some people, cooking is their favorite thing, and I'm so happy for you. You are welcome to infect me with that love of cooking. But during the week, I do not like to cook. It's just one more chore. So here's the thing, parenting is a giant act of service. So, but this stuff needs to be kind of different. Maybe it's making a special dinner for them. Maybe it's going out and practicing sports with them. Maybe it's helping them with an issue or a problem. Actually, my daughter and I, we have really bonded through algebra. Algebra one, which algebra one, she is struggling a little bit in there. It's like she really has to think about this, and this is good for her. And so for me to take the time and just come down, all right, hey, I've got 15 minutes. You need help with anything? Can I help you with any of your homework? I ask, and she's like, yeah, I'm kind of stuck on these two problems. So we'll sit down together and do that. That makes her feel loved because I'm carving out that time to help. Also, some of these acts of services, me going and picking up her friends to have them come over, me taking them to the mall. I'll ask, hey, what's something special you want to do this weekend? Do you want to have some friends over? And me going and helping make that happen, that's an act of service. Fixing something, doing a project together, helping your child clean their room. Now, this doesn't mean that you clean their room for them all the time, but if they're really feeling overwhelmed, hey, you know what? I tell you, you've had a really rough week. Hey, let's work together on putting your laundry away. Simple things like that really feel empowering. We even had I don't know if you've ever seen that. My child, the special plate, it's like a red plate. I forget the actual words on it is like the special plate, I think it was called. And we'd have occasional things where we'd rotate who got to eat their breakfast or their dinner off this special plate. Just that little tiny act was a really powerful thing. So those are the different love languages. As I've been describing those, you might be thinking, oh, well, I think this is the one I have. Now that I think about it, I wonder if my child has this. Every child tends to have a primary and a secondary love language. Typically, before the age of 5, it's really important to show them love and attention in all of those ways. But typically, by the age of 5, 6 or so, they're starting to develop some preferences. So one way you can figure out what your child's love language is observe how they express love to you. If they're always giving hugs, maybe there's this physical touch. If they're really big and saying, Mom, I love you. I'm so glad you're my mom, or whatever that might be. Observe how they express love to you. If they always want to help you, they always want to be with you. Maybe that's quality time. Maybe that's acts of service. If they're always making you cute little notes or little pictures or things like that, maybe their love language is gifts. Just pay attention to how they show you love. Also pay attention to what they request the most. Hey, can you do this for me? Can you wait? Can you come sit with me? Can you watch this movie? Whatever it is, see what they request. And here's a big one. Notice what they complain about. Typically, if I dig into the complaint a little bit, it's really showing what they're missing, what they wish that they were having. So a complaint, even though they're irritating and annoying, can really be a good clue into what your child is kind of wishing and hoping for. How often do we do that in our adult relationships? We say things like, it would be nice if you helped me do the dishes. You always have time for your friends. Well, what am I, without directly saying it? I really need your help. I'm feeling overwhelmed. Oh, I'm really questioning whether or not I'm important to you because you spend more time with other people than with me. Kids can't verbally express that any better than some adults can. So often a complaint can be a clue to what they're really feeling like they're missing out on. Another thing you can do is give them a choice between two options. Hey, do you want to play a game or do you want to go get a book? Hey, do you want a piggyback ride or do you want me to take an extra time at your bedtime routine? Just give them a choice between two different things. There's even some online quizzes and things that will be included in the email that get sent to you after the class that give some links to some actual questions that you can ask your kid. There's even some online quizzes that you can answer on behalf of your child or have them answer, and you ask the questions. Another big one is asking them, how do you know I love you? Oh, you're always helping me. How do you know I love you? You give the best hugs. How do you know I love you? Man, you make me the best food. That could be a clue about what their love language is. All right. So, and just be also aware that they do change over time. So I'm going to click on this survey and make sure, let me see what is showing on your screen. Okay. So there's also a link to the 5 love languages quiz where you can actually just click on the quiz and it takes you through. It's really important for you as an adult to understand your love language because here's what often happens. It's easy for me to give my child attention and affection in the way that I like. It's easy for me. I don't even have to think about that. What's a little more difficult is if my child doesn't share the same language. One of my sons, he is not physical touch. Physical touch is super easy for me. He is not. He was huggy as a kid, but he really more like snuggly clothes and stuff like that. But like as an adult, he doesn't give those long lingering hugs as he got older. He just wasn't into that as much. He hated being tickled. He didn't like back scratches. That wasn't his thing. But oh my gosh, quality time and words of affirmation, huge for him. Brothers, oh my gosh, they were so affectionate. I loved it. And it was easy for me. So I had to be more purposeful with my other son because I didn't have a lot of time, and quality time isn't a big deal to me simply because I never have time. So I'm just used to not having a ton of time. But I love words of affirmation and acts of service. So I had to work a little harder for him, but it was worth it. So I just was much more purposeful. It didn't come as easy at first until I got to know him and what was important to him, and then it became much more easy. Whereas with two of his brothers, it was easier with them because we were very similar in that way. So there's also this concept that Dr. Gary Chapman talks about in his book, this idea of an emotional tank. It's almost like a bank account. So if you have a bank account that's nearing empty, you are going to feel a little stress. I'm a teacher. I've experienced this stress on a regular basis. But if someone's bank account is running low or gets overdrawn, then problems start to pile up. If I am speaking to my child in their love language, if I'm being purposeful about how I'm showing them attention and time and love and affection, I am filling their emotional tank with love. When your child feels love, they are much easier to discipline and train than when their emotional tank is running near empty. This is where the knowledge of the 5 love languages was absolutely profound in our healing as a family after divorce. Profound when I could be purposefully making deposits in my child's emotional tanks, when a lot of things in life were poking holes in those emotional tanks, the little traumas and the adjustments and the changes and the stresses and co-parenting and all the things. Well, me being purposeful about filling their emotional tanks actually is preventive and it's healing. I didn't have as many discipline problems with them when their emotional tanks were full. They were much more open to correction. Just like my one son who all of a sudden got all snarky and backtalky. Well, guess whose emotional tank was running empty? Because I wasn't doing a lot of words of affirmation. I was doing a lot of words of correction. So his tank was low and he did not act like someone I really wanted to be around. I was putting all of that on him and his attitude when really I wasn't the cause of that, but the things that I was doing as a parent was making it more likely for that to happen. I think I was creating an emotionally empty environment that made it easier for him to get his needs met in a negative way. So I have found this to be so, 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 so true that it has increased the quality of my relationship with my children so that we feel closer. They're receptive of what I have. They seek out my advice. And when I'm feeling a little distant from them, it's often a time like, oh, yeah, you know what? I haven't been really purposeful. And it helps us reconnect faster. So emotional tanks, huge. Just like we have emotional tanks as adults as well. Now, what do I do with this information? It's good to give heavy doses of those love languages and of their primary love language, but it's not like I totally stop doing all the others. We still have things that we like. We might not have a love language of gifts, but it doesn't mean that we don't like a nice thing every now and then. But, sprinkle, really focus on their primary love language, their secondary love language, and make sure we're still doing the others as well. They'll learn how to receive all the five love languages when they're exposed to all of them, and it helps them be better at giving them as well. Before the age of 4, use them all. And then and then they tend to have more favorites by the time they're 5 or 6. But I do want to point out they can change over time. My love language is 100% physical touch, words of affirmation. After I had children, acts of service was everything because guess what? Time was important to me and I couldn't do it all. And now I didn't have any margin. And if you'll help me, great. I mean, I don't need your hug. I need you to do the dishes. I don't need, your hug and pat on the back. I need you to like help me drive the kids to soccer. Like that acts of service was everything to me. When people brought me meals when I had a child and when I was on bed rest with my second child, that was like, oh my gosh, this was the most amazing thing ever. So your love language can change over time because just like we change and grow, your love language can, just so can your children. Things that they might have liked when they were younger, maybe they don't, they like it in a different way as they get older. So be open to that. Don't stay rigid in your thinking about this. And the big thing, try to begin and end every day in their love language. Like my daughter, she is definitely a words of affirmation girl and she likes physical touch, but only certain types. So in the morning, I am not, Sophia, it's time to get up. Let's go, let's go, let's go, let's go. I'm very cautious about how I talk in the morning. So the way I wake her up, give her a nice gentle rub on the back. All right. Hey, sweetheart, it's time to get up. It's going to be a little bit cold today. So that might be what you want to pick for your outfit. I'm so glad you're awake. I love you. And I am making sure that my interaction with her in the morning is positive. If there is anything like, you have to, did you do your homework, whatever it might be, I'm just very conscious of how I say it because I want to start her day off using words of affirmation in a great way. All right. End their day in their love language too. And you were like, but Lauren, how do I do that? All right, let me show you. I have something and this will come to you. You know what? Actually, it's on here. Give me a second. Hmm. I'm going to move this around so you can see this. Let's see if this is sharing right now. Okay, perfect. So there's an actual, I love uh, this PDF document that it takes the 5 love languages and it goes through and actually describes each one in detail and then gives you notes on how to work it into their daily routine. So of course the writing is really too small for you to see right now, but like in the area of physical touch, um, even it goes into what I love is it tells you how to use this, how it impacts learning, how it can impact anger, how you can use this with discipline. But then it gives you like this cheat sheet. Examples of physical touch in the morning start routine. Gentle shake to wake up, patting on the shoulder before leaving for the day, picking up a smaller child and showing them something out the window, giving a high five to an older child for finishing something or getting ready for school on time, giving a shoulder massage while they're eating breakfast, brushing their hair, or helping them fix their hair. That's physical touch worked into the morning routine. Then they have daily activities that will be examples of physical touch with children, picking up a small child to carry them somewhere, giving high fives, giving a quick hug anytime, patting on the back while you're asking a question, playing a physical game like basketball, football, or twister, brushing the hair, help them fix their hair, scratching their back, letting them sit in your lap when they want to, or when you're reading a story, giving them a kiss or a hug. These are daily experiences. Then we have bedtime routines. All right. giving them a piggyback ride, walking up to bed, patting their arm as you give them a stuffed animal to sleep with, tucking them in at night. Oh my gosh, my stuns, they love this one thing. They're like, Mama, can I have a cocoon? So a cocoon meant I would spread out the blanket, they'd get on the end, and I'd roll them up in it and then tuck them in really, really tight so they look like a little human burrito. Loved it. Like loved it. It was so funny. And it was really funny that one time one of them, when he was in sixth grade, asked for that. But I could tell when they were having a tough day, if I'd go up and tuck them in at night, I'm like, all right, I'm tucking you in. And they're like, Mom, I'm not a kid anymore, while they're smiling. So work in that physical touch into the bedtime routine, holding hands if you have a certain ritual at night, placing your hand or shoulder while you're telling them something important, holding them while you read a book before bed, anything like that. I fix my daughter's hair every night before she goes to bed. She has this little curler thing that she uses. I'm giving them a foot massage while you're talking to them. That's ways to work it into the bedtime routine. If you can start and end the day in your child's love language, makes a big difference. Take notes. What do you notice they really like? We'll start to make that a routine because kids don't just figure out that we love them, they need to feel like it. So I do love that. It definitely gives a lot of, let me share this. Okay, there we go. It gives them a lot of details about what to do. Okay, so here's why I love the love languages. It is preventive. When children feel loved, they are much more responsive to guidance. I even use this at school with kids that aren't my own children. When children feel like they have a relationship with you, they are much more easily willing to work for you and do tough stuff. It's preventive. Kids will get their needs met through misbehavior. So typically, as a counselor, we ask, what's the function of that behavior? Why are they doing what they're doing? If it's attention seeking, maybe they need quality time. If they're constantly being physical, maybe they need more positive physical touch. You can be strategic with your limited time, and it really does help kids heal from difficult events. I really truly feel like the principles of the five love languages are what has helped my boys be as well balanced as they are after our family went through a lot of different stuff. So really, really powerful. And it just makes it feel safe. Now, there are some things to avoid. Call it the dark side of every love language. Every love language has recommended things to do, but the opposite of that is how you might misuse their love language. And they're much more sensitive to that. So here's some tips for each love language to kind of realize I need to focus on yes, doing these things. And if possible, I need to really try to avoid doing these things. So, physical touch. Physical punishment is really tough on a kid whose love language is physical touch. I teach parenting. I'm not a spanker. You know, people have lots of different opinions about that. I couldn't spank my children because it did not work for them. Like it offended them. I can remember 3 times that I've spanked my children over the years when they were little, and it just offended them because physical touch was so important to them. And physical touch was important to me. I was spanked all the time growing up, and it really had an impact on my relationship. With my parents. So, pulling away from physical touch after puberty is also something to avoid. Now, you might change that physical touch. Maybe they're not sitting in your lap anymore, but if they want to sit in your lap, let them sit in your lap. One of my sons, the one who loved his hair to be brushed, he would literally be like, Mom, will you rub my back? And he'd get a pillow, he'd put it in my lap, sitting on the couch, and he would lay down in my lap. And he was 17 years old, and he would fall asleep in my lap, and he was 17 years old. So what? It was perfectly innocent, and he needed that. And if I had not provided that physical touch for him, well, he's going to go find physical touch somewhere else. And you know what? I didn't want to be a grandma yet. So, these things are preventive and really helpful. Doing hugs before and after school, sitting next to them while they're doing their homework, learning through movement. All of these things are things you can do. Just be careful about pulling back and using it in a negative way. During discipline, you can actually hug them while you're talking to them. Creates this cocoon of safety while you're also sharing something that we really need to change. That can be really helpful. Now, when it comes to words of affirmation, the dark side of words of affirmation is criticism, negative reinforcement, and praise with conditions. Like I'm only praising when they're being successful or they're being the best or they got the perfect grade or whatever. Negative reinforcement is where I'm using criticism and punishment to, kind of try to shape behavior and criticism. Now, again, children need correction. If you have a words of affirmation kid, like I do, Got to keep that balance. And how you say it makes all the difference in the world. If I'm saying things like, what did you do that for? What were you thinking? That's criticism. Oh, your hair looks terrible today. Don't go at the house like that. That looks awful. That's criticism. That hits the heart of a child with words of affirmation, and it really impacts their self-worth. If you have to do verbal correction, be purposeful or use iMessages. iMessages, I use those all the time as a gentler but very specific way of correcting. To help with learning, give lots of good job stickers. Remind them of past successes when they're failing. Remind them of past times where they've worked really hard. And during discipline, avoid yelling and shaming. When they've messed up, correct them, but also remind them what you're proud of. Because that, if you're yelling and screaming, that is a big deal to, it's a big deal to any kid, but especially a kid whose words of affirmation. Quality time. Things to avoid are long periods of time apart or spending more time with others than them. They'll keep score on that. Now, I do know we're busy. I do know for some of us, we're in blended families and maybe we're on a visitation schedule with our kids. So even when you can't spend that time with them, FaceTiming or things like that could be really, really helpful, and be thoughtful about that. You know where I don't always want to spend my time when I'm stressed out? With my children. Be purposeful about it. So if you've got a child who's quality time, figure out how to work it in. Bring them only on errands. Things like that can be helpful. For learning, sit with them while they're doing their homework. That's a great way to spend time with them, or sit right next to them while you're doing your work. Hey, I'm going to do my work right next to you. I love being near you. In a discipline situation, isolation can be really hard on these kiddos, where I'm sending you to your room. Try to work together to solve problems, because it can feel like they're not loved if they're sent to the room. Now, again, timeout is an important thing. Just be cautious of it with a quality time kid, using it too much or for too long periods of time. Gifts, do not miss special days. This special days mean everything to them. Mark your calendars, have it beep, whatever it takes, don't miss it. But don't use gifts to make up for a lack of love in other areas. In discipline, don't take away a gift as punishment. It's like removing your love. That's how hard it hits them. And for these kiddos, talk to them before you have a garage sale. And you can have things like, okay, if something new's coming in, we need to have something go out. But maybe you can even set it up that they get to gift that to someone else, and then there's joy in them giving the gift. And for acts of service, avoid ignoring their request for help and going and helping someone else before you help them. That really hurts them a lot. You're always there for everyone else. When are you going to be there for me? But don't do for your children what they can do for themselves, like where you're overprotecting and pampering. You can surprise them every now and then, but that doesn't mean they don't have any chores and you're doing all their chores for them. That's not quite the same as acts of service. Avoid saying things like, well, I'll do this for you if you'll do this for me. Then it's almost like, well, I'm having to do this. And in discipline, don't say things like you regret doing something for them, because it kind of, in their minds, they can interpret that as, well, you regret loving me. I should never help you. You don't ever do your parts. That can get really hard. So now I've covered a lot of different things, and I have 1 minute to spare. This is so exciting. Erin, I deserve a gold sticker for that, or some more words of affirmation. That will be great. You are going to have PowerPoint links, the recording sent out to you. They'll edit it and do that kind of stuff. And we're going to have different events that are coming up. So definitely, if you like that Facebook page, the Oklahoma Family Network Facebook page, now is it coming up for me? Yes, it is coming up for me. But they have like events, all sorts of stuff that's going on there. And they have all sorts of really family-friendly activities, but also if you have kiddos with special needs, there's all sorts of great things that are going on there. So highly recommend liking that. And we'll offer more parenting classes and more sessions and stuff like this. We have some different things planned for next semester as well. And then also, Erin's really open to your feedback. So if there's a topic you need more information about, or you wish there were more about, hey, just send it and we'll make something happen, because I'm always looking for new ideas of different things to talk about with parents. But definitely Oklahoma Family Network has some great family-friendly activities, and it's just a great resource. And free never hurts. I really do like free. If you need to reach out to me, you can reach me at lauren.alvarez@jenksps.org. Don't hesitate to reach out. I'm at Jenks East Elementary, and I'm always happy to share resources or anything you need.